All right, so I'm excited to have Jason Hall with DoorGrow here with us today, all the way from sunny Southern California. Thank you, Jason, for taking time to be here on the Championship Leadership Podcast.
Nate, thanks for having me.
Yeah, you bet. I always like to start it off. So Championship Leadership is the name of the podcast, and I always like to find out what comes to mind for you, or what do you think of? What's the first thing that pops into your head when you hear Championship Leadership?
Yeah, so championship leadership, well, I think somebody that's a champion and connected to leadership is somebody that sets an example for their team. I mean, that's really what leadership is about, is modeling, behavior and, setting the tone and the pace for the rest of your team. And in order to do that, you got to have a team. And I think I made the mistake early on trying to build a business with what I thought was a team, but was a bunch of contractors, which is not the same.
Yeah. Yeah. And so what have you done, or what have you learned from that process like you said, it's not the same. So have you done something differently to really create that team for yourself and your company and what you guys are doing with DoorGrow?
Yeah. So, I mean, maybe another meaning of champion leadership would be somebody that is championing leadership that, makes this a focus. And so one of the things I've learned from my business coach, who is Alex Sharfin, and one of the things that I really have focused on is in turning my team members into leaders. And so I think one of the biggest mistakes that I made early on is that I employed people as process. Like, people, in my opinion, in the beginning, when I was working on, moving from solopreneur to something bigger than that, beyond just myself, and I needed leverage, is I thought, well, I'll just bring in people to do jobs, and I would give them a set of tasks, and I would give them a set of processes to follow, and I'd say, do that. The problem with that is that's what's called transactional leadership, and transactional leadership is it's kind of like a drug for entrepreneurs. I think in the beginning, it feels really exciting because everybody needs us. We're like Dr. Feelgood, man. Everybody comes to us, and everyone has to ask us everything to do everything. Jason, how should we do this? How should I do that? And it makes the entrepreneurs get attached to that. And if you build and scale a business, which it's possible to scale a business like that, but it becomes really painful, and it becomes really annoying and really self-defeating. And what ends up happening is you build a team of people that don't get to win. So that means they're all losers, technically. So what you end up building is a team that they don't get to win because you tell them what to do. And if I tell you exactly what to do and you do it right and it works, who wins? I win.
Yeah.
I win. I get all the credit. I'm so great. I did this. And if they screw up, if it doesn't work, but they followed everything that I said, whose fault is it?
Then they lose, right? Yeah, it's on them.
It's my fault though still, right? So they don't get to win and they don't get to lose. And so that's transactional leadership. Is I'm going to hand you $1 and you're going to give me some work in return, a task. And I'm going to tell you what tasks to do. And millennials don't want to do that anymore. This younger generation want meaningful work. They don't want to just sit there and follow a checklist and feel like they're like a robot on an assembly line. They want to have some meaning in their life. And I think what's funny is you can identify transactional leaders really quickly because they're the old dinosaur bosses that are complaining about millennials because they don't get it. They're operating with this old school business model that, well, I pay them and I tell them what to do. Why don't they just do it exactly the way I tell them to do and just shut up? And they're in a transactional leadership business. And it's demoralizing. I mean, so in that business model, the only people, those business owners can keep and retain are B players. A players do not want to sit there and be told what to do every step of the way and micromanaged and never have a chance to win. If they can't win, A players are out. They'll go find a job somewhere else where they have autonomy, freedom, they get to drive outcomes. And so the opposite of transactional leadership is transformational leadership. This is where you're actually turning them into leaders. You become their champion because you're helping them become leaders. So instead, I use the analogy a lot of times with clients. It's the difference between how I used to feel like I wanted to get to the top of the mountain, and I was climbing the mountain with the machete through the jungle trying to get there. And I'm dragging my team up the hill behind me.
Yeah.
Saying, come on, guys, like, let's go. And they're on a sled behind me laying down. And that's what it felt like. That's transactional leadership. You feel like you have to tell everybody what to do. Hey, cut that tree, do this, do that. And they're behind you, right? You're trying to lead the way. Transformational leadership, you give them an outcome. Like, we're going to get to the top of this mountain. And then you hire a team of badasses and they say, great, let's do this. And they go out in front of you with their machetes and are clearing the path and saying, Jason, you focus on your area of genius and we'll take care of everything, all the nitty gritty, all the stuff you don't want to take care of. We're going to help you make this possible. And they get to win because they get to drive outcomes. So I give them an outcome. So I know this is the result I want instead of telling them how to do it. Now, we do have processes in our business that are repeatable, and there's jobs like that. But when it comes to goal setting, planning, our annual goals, our quarterly goals, our monthly goals, our weekly commitments, all of it is based on somebody being responsible for that goal or that outcome, and them having a clear idea of what that outcome is supposed to look like, and then they can do it however the hell they want. Yeah. I don't care how they do it as long as they follow our values, they follow our principles, they understand the reason why they're doing it. They can get creative. And then what happens is they start to innovate, because in transactional leadership, because you're micromanaging them, if they innovate, they're screwed, right? Because if it doesn't work, that you're going to be furious. I told you exactly how to do this and you didn't do it. Yeah. So they'll never do it. They will never innovate or create something new. And if they do, they're pushing against the system. And it's uncomfortable for them, and it's uncomfortable for that business owner. And if it works out, the business owner might tolerate it and maybe eventually move them into a more strategic role, but it generally doesn't play out very well if they fail. And the first time they fail or screw something up, and they get that backlash, they're silent. No more innovation from them, and they probably aren't going to stay in that company.
Right, yeah. That's really interesting. You know, I just recorded a podcast with a guy named John Hopper, and he's got a company, The Greatest on the Planet. And actually, I mean, we were having almost this same exact conversation, really, of, you know, and millennials came up too. It's like, number one, not everybody's driven by money, and so that's not going to solve it. And then number two, it's like, especially with millennials, like, they want to know why, they want to have a purpose, and really, it's the leaders. Like you're talking about, you're painting the vision. You're really like showing them the vision of what you want. That's your responsibility as the leader. And then, like, you know, however it gets done, as long as it's ethical and done, you know, within, I guess you'd say, the lines of the field, with integrity, and it represents the company in a good way, then, like, go figure it out, go do it, and let them thrive and grow. And then you're just like, you want them to be lifted up. You want them to become better, because number one, that's just going to only make you better, right? Because to continue to lift these others, there's no scarcity there. I think there's a lot of leaders that aren't championship, or what I think you're calling transformational, you know, there's a lot of scarcity in the transactional leader. Like, they have to feel important, like they are the focal point, and, you know, they love the control. They're limiting themselves. And so where did you learn that? Like, was that through just investing in yourself, through experience, or just like figuring it out?
I mean, so the transactional and transformational leadership is a concept that my business coach, Alex Sharfin, really started to drive into my head. But the reason I was able to absorb it was because I had lived both of it. Like, I've done both. I wanted a business that was transformational in its quality, and I wanted team members that had autonomy and would do stuff. So I created a team like that. But I was trying to do it with contractors, which didn't really work, because contractors, they want to get paid for a job. They want to do a particular task, and they don't want to do anything outside of what they're told to do, because they likely won't get paid for that work. So they're going to naturally avoid that. So I had, one of the things that I was coached to do that I had to shift was taking a fairly large contractor team to a smaller, more potent, more effective team of actual employees, and building an executive team. So I have now an operations manager, who I'm grooming for COO. I have a sales manager. I have a manager over fulfillment, and some other roles that we're building. And these people take all this weight and load off my plate. I think the myth we have as business owners is that we can just find that one person to clone ourselves with.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
But the reality is, entrepreneurs are really adaptable. We can do a lot of different things. That doesn't mean we should be doing everything. So the real trick is to identify what your real area of genius or your real strength is, what you really help the business the most with that nobody else can do, and to just focus on that. So over time, I'm taking and slicing off pieces of what I do so that what I do becomes narrower and narrower. So I'm actually doing more and more of less.
Right.
I'm doing less, but I'm doing more of that. Right.
Yeah.
And so, I hate running meetings. I hate them. I hate running meetings. I hate planning them. And entrepreneurs, we usually screw up meetings because we say something and everybody goes, okay, we'll do what he says. So now I don't run meetings. I'm the last one to speak so that my team can get their input. They can innovate. They can come up with ideas. And then I can, bring them back to my vision and make sure that we're still in focus towards that. And so, yeah, I think what you said is true, that a lot of millennials and a lot of people are just not money driven. Obviously, it's, high D disc profile salespeople, they're pretty money driven, but on a typical disc profile or values assessment, if their economic score is low, money's not their motivating factor.
Right.
And I usually find that the strongest alternative motivating factor to money is recognition. And you can't recognize somebody if they're just doing what you told them to do. Hey, congrats. Bobby here did exactly what we told him to do. It sounds so patronizing and rude.
Yeah.
But if you say, hey, we have this goal to hit this number in sales, or to get this many people added to our Facebook group, and Susie got it done, or Fred got it done, or whatever, they get the win. And so every meeting we have, we're sharing our wins. It's like a celebration every time people are getting their stuff done. Instead of, hey, congrats, you did what I told you to do.
Yeah. So. Well, let's talk. What Door Grow? What how did that come about for you? What's your story behind being inside of the property management space or industry, and what got you to where you are today?
Yeah. So, I mean, years ago, about a decade ago, I was building websites. Because doing websites and doing some tech stuff for a company, and then the stock market shifted, everything tanked, and I decided, well, this company I'm working for, I'll just make them a client because they can't pay me right now. So you're now a client, and I've got this business. I had to go try and find other people that could pay me to do that stuff. And so I started this web design business, and one of my earliest clients was my brother. He came to me, he was like, hey, he just bought into a property management franchise. He's like, I don't like the website they gave me. I know you're savvy with marketing. Could you help me figure this out? And so I gave him some tips, and he made some changes to it. And he's like, I still don't like it. Could you just build me one? So I'm like, oh, okay, fine. So I helped him out. I built a website. And then all of his fellow franchisees started wanting what he had. Some guys that had 2,000, 3,000 or more doors already in their portfolio, even though he was just starting out. And they're like, I want what Bryant has. So then I started attracting property management businesses around the US. And eventually I shifted outside of that franchise and started attracting any business from outside the US because we had all these great backlinks. We ranked well organically on Google. We started to become kind of the secret weapon in the property management industry. So that niche just grew. And so we changed our business name, ate our own dog food, and became Door Grow maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And just decided to go all in, focusing on that property management niche. And the surprising thing, that happens when you focus on a niche, even though I could do this for any business, is you're able to, one, systemize your business significantly, reducing operational costs. So instead of building lots of random different types of custom websites, we can create a model for building things out and templating things in a way that allows us to offer greater value for our clients at a much lower price. And so then it becomes hard for others to compete with us in that space. And then we started identifying their biggest challenges for growth. And so a lot of small businesses are trying to do the same stuff to grow. And it's stuff that really is a difficult game to play. It's a really defeating game. So usually they're trying to play the game of SEO, pay-per-click, content marketing, social media marketing. They think that's what I need to do to grow.
Yeah.
And they forget about some of the foundational things, like most businesses grow, get the majority of their best, warmest leads that actually convert into deals through word of mouth. So I'm kind of a growth hacker. And so I sat back and I was like, all right, how can I help these small companies grow? Because we were a marketing agency at the time and most of them couldn't afford us. I identified that the majority of our clients are maybe 200 to 400 door companies, which means they're fairly healthy. They're probably making maybe $300K in revenue or more annually. And they're at a decent small business and they've got a small team of people probably. And, but the majority of my target audience, when I started doing research and looking around, were like solopreneurs that were starving, couldn't afford to hire their first employee, were stuck at 50 or 60 units under management. And so there was this huge gap, and that was like maybe 90% of my target audience. I mistakenly thought in the beginning that every client were like these thousands of door companies that were amazing, that had lots of money. And I was like, man, I love this niche, this industry, right?
Right.
So I then realized there was a gap, and so if I wanted to sell marketing services to clients, I had to create a product or an offering that could help them get to the point where they could afford us.
Yeah.
And so I built out this program that we called the Seed Program. And it was like this foundational program to shore up all the major leaks that existed in their sales pipeline, all the way from awareness, through to closing a deal. There's a lot of major leaks that a business might have. And usually what they focus on, though, is just turning the spigot on full blast. So like, let's do more marketing. And they've got this hose all the way through the end. And at the other end is their little business they're trying to grow. And it's not getting any water because they've got major leaks all throughout this hose. And so the biggest leaks we identified, surprisingly, had to do with awareness and branding being off or mistargeted, reputation and online reviews being off or causing leaks or not being focused on, because that's like a solid new form of word of mouth and warm leads. Their website being off and not being focused on what clients want. They were trying to manipulate Google, so it wasn't actually pleasing people or creating trust or creating conversions. And then even after that, they weren't even answering their phones or didn't have a decent follow-up process, and they had no sales process in place to really be effective at selling. And so they had these major leaks. And so then after we got them through that, we also identified that at least in the property management industry, one of the best ways for them to grow would be to get them to shift their focus from advertising to doing prospecting, because in the property management industry, there's like 70% blue ocean. That you've got this 20 or 30% that are like self-managing and properties, and then everybody else are potential. You got 20 or 30% that are with a property management company, and then 70% are available to manage. They just aren't aware of property management. So we started shifting their focus to a different spigot of warm water and doing prospecting, one-to-many sales. And then we took them through a process to clean up all these different aspects of their business through, branding. So we're taking businesses and we're completely rehabbing them. Like, we're getting sometimes 40-year-old companies where we're making them change their business names. That's not easy to get business owners to do. Yeah, but we've gotten really good at convincing them that it's just a financial choice and they want to make more money. So we take them through this process. So the side effect of this program that I created was that it was so effective at helping them shore up the leaks in their business and generate more organic and warm business that they didn't want to do the marketing services that we offer. They're like, we don't need cold leads anymore. We don't want them. We don't want to waste time on the phone with somebody that isn't already warm and whatever. I don't have time for that. And so we had to pivot as a company, and we've now shifted our entire focus on that product and then building out services that they need after that.
Wow. Love it. That's so. Yeah, what's your vision? We talked about that a little bit. So what is your vision for Door Grow? And are there competitors in your space of what you do? And Yeah, where do you want this to go, and what do you want DoorGrow to be?
Yeah, so we've got a really strong vision, which I think is important. If you're going to hire a team of really A-grade players, that's huge, just having a culture, and you have to have a vision. So our why statement as a business is to transform property management businesses and their owners. Like, that's what we're all about. We want to make a significant change in the business and in the person running it. And my personal mission statement, my personal why, is to inspire others to love true principles. And what that means is I just love figuring out what works and sharing it with other people. That's fun. If I could spend all day just studying stuff and learning and then sharing it with other people, I'm happy. And that's what I get to do. That's my life, and it's awesome. And so being able to do that is really cool. So our vision as a company is we want to be the leading resource for property management companies, especially in the residential space, for growth. We want to be the number one source for growth-related material and growth-related content to get people into the property, into property management. And if we can, our other mission though is, industry specific. We want to change the industry. Property management has a bad reputation, especially among real estate agents. The number one source of most complaints about property management or the number one source of complaints at most board of realtors offices are property management related. There's a really low barrier to entry currently in the industry. You have to get maybe a broker's license, which is relevant to real estate, but not to property management. So there's no real solid criteria for a property manager. So a lot of people will say a rising tide raises all ships. I believe that, but the tide in property management is low. It is low tide, and there are ships sitting on bedrock, and they're sitting on rocks. And I think a rising tide will raise most ships, hopefully, but it's going to sink some. And my goal is to sink the crappy ones, and because they're not seaworthy, and make sure that we help the best ones win. And that, I think, would benefit the entire industry. And I believe that property management, if done well, can have a massive impact. So in Australia, 80% of single family residential properties are professionally managed by a property management company, 80%. Wow. I believe that we can shift closer to that, where it's like maybe 30% here in the US.
Yeah.
We can shift closer to that. And I believe there's tons and tons of rental properties, and good property management, if done well, can change the world. It has a massive impact on the people that own the properties and their financial resources. These are usually their biggest financial investments ever, these rental properties. It has a massive impact on all the tenants and their families and that are in these properties. And it has an impact on the property management businesses and their employees and their teams. And so the ripple effect in the property management industry can be massive. And I believe it can be as big as real estate, but it's nowhere near that yet.
Yeah, I can definitely talk to that. As you know, I invest in real estate. I bought an 8-plex in Ohio just a year ago, and so obviously I live in Minnesota, and I had to have a property manager for that, and luckily I found a good one. And from an owner standpoint, it's amazing. And I can even, I imagine from the tenant standpoint too, just having that contact, that person that's going to take care of things and answer the calls and be there and in a timely manner and all of that, just all the way around, how big of a difference it really does make. And I've been on the other side too, where I've tried to just want to do it all myself, especially when you're early and you're a new investor and maybe you just have a few single families and you want to try and do everything else. Don't have the big picture of like, it's worth the money to invest in someone that can manage it properly and manage it well, because profitability will go up as well. But yeah,
absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of real estate people out there that are pushing the idea that real estate is this magical turnkey investment sort of thing. But anybody that has a rental property knows it doesn't feel very turnkey.
Yeah, exactly.
But if you do want something that is actually, a residual income business model, and you want something to cash flow and you want to not be involved in it, and you're dealing with real estate investments, rental properties, then having a property manager is a key player on your team that you can trust. And really, some people enjoy that stuff. They're the crazy ones, and they're the ones that are my clients.
Yeah, right. Right.
If you are one of those people that you're like, I'm a real estate investor, I enjoy managing these properties. I've got maybe, I'm over 4 units. I've maybe got 6 to 8 units already I'm managing. I know how to do this. I understand landlord tenant law. I enjoy this stuff. I've got process. Then they could start a property management business and start doing it for other people. And that gives them the best dibs on real estate deals. It gives them the best dibs on investment opportunities. And it's an absolute like win-win for those people.
Yeah.
So I love finding those people that are ready, but I'm not going to teach somebody how to do property management. That's not what I teach. I just want to find those
absolutely.
that I can win, so that are already good.
Yeah, I love that. Here's another question I like to ask. It's, so as a championship level leader, I talk all the time, and we talked about it already, like the vision, to see what others can't see. And a lot of times that will happen when we're coming to this major turning point in our life. Maybe we don't necessarily realize it at that time, but usually when I ask this question, there's a time that will automatically pop up in someone's head of like, you could have very easily went the path that everybody else did. You could take the left and go where everybody else did, where that maybe doesn't have you on this podcast today, doesn't have you in the industry that you're in and doing what you are, versus, taking the right, having the courage to make the decision. Like championship level leaders, that they will take decisive execution, right? They'll take action. They're not afraid, like their belief in themselves and their vision and where they're going and what they're doing. And even though it's not the popular path. And so is there a time in your life that you can think of where, you could have very easily went the path that most will travel, and instead, what has you here today, you took the one that was not the popular route?
Yeah. I mean, I can think of this in a lot of ways. And I think every entrepreneur resonates with this or feels this, because entrepreneurs are visionaries. They see something that the rest of the world cannot see. And sometimes it's frustrating for us because we're like, why can't everybody see this? Right. Mm. And that's what really kills us, I think, as entrepreneurs, is because we see opportunity everywhere. Everything looks broken to us. We're like, oh, this is why this business needs to change this. Like the second we walk in, let's fix that. And they should change this. So I think for me, I had a decade of struggle. We're not some overnight success. We're over $1 million run rate right now in the business, but it was painful. And there were lots of years where money wasn't flowing. I remember times where I was trying to juggle sales and fulfillment as a single person trying to do it, or with contractors. And so you end up with sales slumps, and then you don't have revenue, and then because you're working on fulfillment, and then I'm getting fulfillment out, and or focusing on sales, and then fulfillment's falling, backlogging. And so, and there were times where trying to manage cash flow was a huge pain. I think a lot of businesses deal with this. And so it was a game changer for us to implement Profit First from Mike Michalowicz. He's been on my podcast, and he came and spoke at our conference that we did in St. Louis in November. And I think that's a game-changing system for entrepreneurs. It helps add some financial padding and safety around our craziness. And that's made my wife feel a lot safer and my team feel a lot safer. Because, I remember one painful time I was having trouble paying some of my team members and trying to get money to come in, and the cash flow was just kind of a mess. And I wasn't able to pay some team members, and I had to tell them, like, please keep working and get this stuff done, and I'll get you paid, I promise. But if you quit working, my business falls apart and I can't even pay my own rent. Right. And that's a scary, humiliating thing to have to say to your team members. And I remember I had this team member that was a believer, that was like, and entrepreneurs, we need believers on our team. We need it. It's like, it's what helps us keep going, because it gets tough. And I had this believer as an assistant, and she'd been with me for like 3 years, and she quit. She's like, and she said, like, I don't believe in you anymore. And it was painful. I'd broken that trust, because it was like maybe the second or third time where I was like, can you just hold on? I'll get you paid. And, and I realized things had to change. I just couldn't see how to do it. And it's really tempting when you're in situations like that, and you're up against the fire, and your spouse is saying, why don't you just go get a job
Yeah.
You know, you can make somebody would hire and you can make a lot of money at a job, and you're working for peanuts trying to scrape and do everything yourself.
Yeah.
And to us entrepreneurs, that's almost the equivalent of somebody saying, why don't you just go kill yourself?
Just go
Right?
die somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Exactly.
So, but you know, when I tell stories about entrepreneurism and stuff that I've actually gone through to people that are not entrepreneurs, they look at me like I'm crazy. They're like, why didn't you just get a job?
Yeah. Right.
And I
Yeah.
look at them like they're crazy. Like, how can
Yeah.
you live
How
that
can you
way?
do
But
that?
we
Right.
need, you know, we need all types of people.
Absolutely.
And so we're just different. And so I think the way to get through those times is to, when you have a clear vision and you can see something ahead in the future, then it makes the pain a lot more palatable. So knowing, like, I had this belief that I would figure it out, and I was relentless. And I just kept going and I kept going. And sometimes things still feel painful. But I have a vision. I have this idea already out ahead. And my team, they get freaked out sometimes. Like, don't get me wrong. Like,
Yeah.
even in some of our planning meetings, like right now, they're like, hey, we just, you know, we've got this $10,000 program. We need something below it. And I'm like, you're right, we do. And here's how we can create this. But we doubled the price over our previous product when we relaunched it and revamped it and improved it. And the sales team was freaking out. They were like, how are we going to sell this and at twice the price? I said, well, let's collapse the time to results in half and let's increase the value, but it's certainly worth it. We figured out we were underpriced compared to any competitors. Our
Yep.
results were bigger. And so it was easily worth it, but there's still that fear in doing new things. And you have to have that vision and that belief so you can have that to transfer to your team. And that's where you become that visionary leader because belief is transferable. It's like
Yeah.
a virus.
Well,
And if the
absolutely.
belief in the business is negative, it gets all over everybody. So having a cancerous person in your business can destroy the business. It undermines your authority. It undermines everything. And you don't want to be the person that's creating that. And so, but it's also the positive. If they have doubts and fears, you can, you know, spread your positive vision and help them see what you can see. And when they see it, they'll fight for you. They'll fight with you. They're like going to battle with you, and they work harder and they work more, more hours if necessary, whatever it takes to make it happen because they believe.
Yeah.
And so I think what's really important in seeing what others can't see, and that's really what a visionary is. I don't know that it's something that can be created. I think it's something that's either hardwired into people or not. They just have a personality type that they are a bit more open to a variety of sources of knowledge and information, and they're able to piece things together and see things that other people cannot see. Either that, or you need to get exposure to a lot of other people that can see stuff that you can't see. And so I think it's imperative that people have mentors, they have coaches, they have friends that are other entrepreneurs they can bounce things off of, that can just help them see a different perspective. Because there's one of my favorite tactics or philosophies is just to create a bigger vision. It's it. Like, take whatever vision your target audience has and figure out how to make it bigger. My client's vision is to just survive and grow a property management business and get money and maybe build their business up to a certain door count. I want to give them a vision that through them, we can change the world. Good property management can change the world. So take whatever it is and just create a bigger vision. Your team member has this job they think they're doing. Give them a bigger vision. We're going to change the lives of our clients. That's a bit bigger. We're going to change the industry and have an impact on the entire US. So I think when you give people a bigger vision, it gives them something to believe in. It gives them something to take them through those more painful times. And you can apply that principle of creating a bigger vision to just about anything. I get somebody on the phone for a sales call. All I need to do is take their limited worldview and show them something bigger. I just think, what would be bigger for them than they're looking at now? And then they go, oh my gosh, that's great. Let's work together.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are looking for that, right? They want somebody else to help them see what they can't see, or to help to paint that vision. And a championship level leader doesn't only have the great vision, but they're able to communicate it to their team and to their employees, and also to be able to transfer the belief, like you were talking. And then the other piece of that is on the other side of like, helping your clients, your target market, to see something bigger than what they can see for themselves as well. So that's beautiful. And it's really a good place to start to wrap this up. The last thing I want to ask is just, is there anything else that you want to leave with our audience, mostly entrepreneurs, business owners, those many aspiring to be championship leaders, and we've had many real estate guests on the show as well. And so, what is there anything that you'd like to leave our audience with before we wrap this up?
Yeah, I think one of the most important things for being a champion leader is to not betray the trust of your team. And I think as entrepreneurs, we do that in a lot of subtle ways. One of the easiest ways to decimate your team who are probably not entrepreneurs is BHAGs. It's to create these big, hairy ass goals. And I know a lot of people talk about it and they think it's a great idea. And it's great for entrepreneurs. Like, we love that stuff. We love that shit. We're like, oh my gosh, this goal is so huge. And we tell ourselves this story that it's better to aim for the stars and miss than a pile of manure and hit. And we have all these great lines like that. But to our team, who their goal in life is safety and certainty, otherwise they'd have their own business.
Yep.
It's completely demoralizing to say, we're going to set this big, huge goal for the year. And from month one, we're going to be losing. And you're going to be losing every month. And what you do is you teach and create a culture of losers that are losing every single month. So if somebody says, we're going to do $1 million in revenue this year. Great. That means month one, you better be making $84,000 in revenue, because if not, you lost that month. We'll make it up next month. Let's go bigger. And so that means the gap's even further, and your team is just learning to lose. And you want to build a team that feels like they're winning every single month. So aim the target way lower, a target that your team absolutely can crush. Yeah.
Love it. Yeah. Especially if you've never done more than, 10,000 a month prior. Right. So
yeah, you have your secret goal, go for it, but don't throw that on your team's shoulders, because they're not going to get excited about it. When we walk into a room excited as entrepreneurs and throw something out, that's the equivalent of pulling a pin on this grenade of an idea and leaving another room and walking out. We think we just left something super exciting. Our team are freaking out. They're like, how are we going to do that? Our life's already difficult. Everything's already, we're already doing our best, or whatever. And so we come in because we're motivated, because we just went to some seminar or conference, and we throw out a bunch of stuff at them and they're freaking out, right? Or we just goal setting with a coach. So I think you need to make really realistic goals that from month one, you're hitting it, so that there's no way in a year you're gonna miss it. There's no way. So your team looks at this annual goal, says, no sweat, we can do this. We did this in the last 12 months. We can hit this goal. But then give them the challenge to see how quick can you hit it. Can you hit it sooner? Like, this is our annual goal. We hit it in month 9, Then no matter what, you're going to win, but they get a bigger win if you do it sooner. And so I think you need to create a culture. And this is something I really learned from Alex Sharfin. Really great guy. You should listen to his Momentum podcast. Really good friend of mine. But I think the idea of keeping the faith and keeping the trust of your team by setting your targets lower sounds really counterintuitive for entrepreneurs, but it's been massive for my team. I would rather, on a consistent basis, set goals that my team believes in and hit 60 to 70% of those goals than to be throwing out new ideas constantly like diarrhea at my team, and new opportunities and distractions, and being a squirrel, right? And all this kind of stuff. And my team are just frantic and freaking out. And this is where most entrepreneurs, how they keep their team running, and their team has no confidence in them, no confidence that there's going to be any consistency. And it's really demoralizing for the team. And we just blame the team as entrepreneurs a lot of times. And so I'm learning more and more to do less and less. In fact, we just did our 9 quarterly planning meeting, some quarterly planning and some 30-day planning today. And my team members at the end, we have all of our different things that we're working on for the month. And they were looking at my list and they were telling me, Jason, you have too much on your list. You're not going to get all this done, and we know you. And so it's time, like, which things can you take off? I'm like, okay, well, that one maybe we can do next month, and that one we'll do. And so my team protects me now too, but they help keep me focused. And I think you need to make sure that your team has consensus and believes in all the goals and targets that you're hitting. Because if they don't, then either you're making they're too afraid to tell you the truth, and which means they're not really believers. And if they don't believe in it, the odds of them hitting any of those targets are slim to none. And at DoorGrow, us hitting 70% or 60% of our targets on a weekly and a monthly basis is better than most companies, like, entire year. Like, most companies are not even setting actual goals outside of just stay alive and survive.
Yeah.
So just remember, if you're not doing less allows you to actually accomplish more.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, no, that's great advice. And, the other piece to that, like you said, is it can end up in burnout too. And yeah, you don't want that. You're constantly replacing people and spinning your wheels. So yeah, thank you, Jason Hall. And how can our listeners find you, follow you? If they're in this space or they want to find out more about you, or maybe they're in the real estate investment place or know some property managers that might be able to benefit from what you do.
Yeah. So anybody that's listening, you can easily find me on any social media channel that you're into. I'm everywhere as King Jason Hull, and that's HULL. So King Jason Hull is my username on Facebook, Instagram, wherever. So you can connect there. And we also have DoorGrow on every channel if you're interested in getting into the property management space. And you can always check out our podcast, check out doorgrow.com, check out doorgrowshow.com. And we have an amazing community if you're looking to learn about property management that's free. It's doorgrowclub.com, which is a redirect to our Facebook group.
Great. Thank you. I love it. We'll get all that stuff in the show notes too, so those links are available to the listeners. And yeah, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate taking time out of your day to do that.
Nate, awesome to connect with you. Thanks, man.
Have a great day.